Do you? And I agree with that, honestly, because a lot of the times where people have to go ahead and explain, Black Lives Matter to anybody at that point, there's always but we matter too. No, we didn't say you guys don't matter. What we're saying is the focus right now is what's happening right now. If you clearly don't see what's going on in the news, it's not like things are being made up. Now, to kind of go back to the Charlottesville protest, the one thing that really kind of, I guess, got to me was the fact that we saw so many people there. It was a ridiculous. I believe it was like, I want to say it was like over 1,000. That was present at least for that. I don't understand why is it that we can't. Well, I do understand, because if a whole bunch of like Hispanics and blacks and any other race were to go and come together, we're gonna have the cops around in not even a matter of 20 minutes. How do you feel about how when we do go ahead and have a peaceful protest, and that we're being lied to every single day, and hey, we're gonna take, the authorities are gonna take care of this, or we're gonna make sure that this is done peacefully. How do you feel when you see on whether it's television or if you witness it yourself, when you see authorities clearly pick the side that they're on, and they feel as though that there's no shame at all involved? Like, how do you feel when you actually witness that or you see that, where authorities literally pick the side that is causing all the turmoil, that's causing all the pain for all these families and people that you may know?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's all part of the same narrative that we're talking about. We're talking about a system. The police department, is a part of the system. The police department is like, the first guard of the system on a social level. Like, their job is to police the streets of America, and so that's like the first front, if you will, of this system of racism. And then, not to mention, they're they're under microscope because of the police brutality. So who do you think that they would rather favor? You know what I mean? Like, and I understand there are some good cops, but going back to what I was saying about white people in general of America, these good cops need to stand up and go against the bad cops as well. That's a sidebar right there. But in totality, in general, like the police department, they don't want to be on the, or they don't want to be necessarily helping out the organizations or the people that are pointing the finger at them and telling them, like, you guys are full of shit. You guys out here doing police brutality and doing, crooked police work. Like, they much rather let the shit happen in Virginia happen. Like, they're probably for that. And not to mention, on an even deeper level, those people that were out there, man, those white nationalists and those neo-Nazis, those people still, they're everyday working people in different facets of life. And some of those people could probably be police officers, like,
definitely,
you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know these things. So when I look at it, man, I look at the whole system and I jumble that shit together, man. District attorneys, judges, lawyers, the police department,
everything is put in place for them.
Like, they're all, it's damn near like a team, man. It's all them versus us, and so what I've been trying to preach to people, especially black people, it's like, everybody's so into like rap and entertainment and playing sports. We need to raise some of these babies to get into the system. We need to raise some of these babies to potentially get into the police department, to potentially try to be lawyers and judges and infiltrate this system so we can flip the system on its head. Because if you go into that type of work and you're conscious about what's happening to your people, then your whole life's work would be dedicated towards, helping the system actually run fairly. You know what I'm saying? And trying to get some of the brothers out of prison that are in prison for stupid, petty crimes. Like, that would be your goal. And if you were a police officer policing the streets of urban communities, your goal would be to be a friend of the community and not to purposely come to the community just to find who you can lock up. You know what I mean? So I feel like we got to infiltrate the system. But yeah, to answer your question, just in general, like they're all on the same team, bro. So police officers that let this shit go down, and the National Guard that doesn't want to come out for this situation, but they came out for the Baltimore situation. Like, it's all part of their game and how they get down, man. It's racism, white supremacy at its finest.
Yeah, probably the highest we've seen so far.
Yeah, to follow up with what you were saying, man, I think when you look at the head of the snake, like so to speak, Donald Trump, man, like, you know, he kind of like the head of the snake. So when you empower somebody, with a history of racism, with a history of bigotry, like you only, you know what I'm saying, adding fuel to the fire. And I seen I can't remember the guy's name that they interviewed in Charlottesville, but he was saying, you know, like, we just following, you know, Donald Trump's plan. And it's kind of like, well, damn, like, that's the president of our country. Like,
yeah.
And to have him come out and kind of say, like, not condemn white nationalists and neo-Nazis and stuff like that, it was kind of,
nationalists. He didn't even call him nationalists. He didn't even go ahead and say anything like that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He didn't condemn. Well, he followed up today and kind of said it, but, you know, like, it's kind of like, when you have somebody with that type of, you know what I'm saying, superiority over, you know what I'm saying, a country, we talking about the president of the United States. So when you have that at the top, like, it's kind of like, well, what do you kind of expect, man? These people going to come out and they're going to act this way because they feel like they have the right to go and do it. So with that, man, I just want to. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know your stance on Trump, but like with him like being empowered to like such a heavy position, well, the position of our country, like how do you think kind of like that plays the role into, you know, into these situations going forward?
It absolutely plays a role, but I'm going to tell you this. Personally, I was almost happy when he got elected because what I knew was going to happen and what I'm seeing happen is when you have these, you know, quote-unquote, like, fake woke people, like, kind of like, they kind of stuck in the middle. They don't really understand systemic oppression, and they don't really get it. It takes somebody like Donald Trump to bring it right to your face and to incite this type of racism to actually physically be displayed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that we would see, we clearly would not see this type of movement, this white nationalist neo-Nazi movement.
Oh, yeah, they're bold as fuck now.
Yeah, they're bold as fuck now. They wouldn't do this under Bush. They wouldn't do this under Clinton. They wouldn't do it. Like, they would not do this, you know. So now you got somebody in a position to kind of incite that and kind of give them some type of hope. But I have to be honest, I'm actually happy about it because it's like if you're trying to explain this, if you're trying to explain that these people exist and this is still going on to people that don't really see it, they're not going to believe you. You know what I'm saying? So to see it happening and to see Trump like today, you're right. He finally said the word white nationalist and neo-Nazi today, but he also followed that up by saying, well, what about the other side? What about the alt-right? Well, you know, what about what they were doing? So he's still inciting it. And you even have David Duke, you know, the head of the white nationalist movement, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, David Duke comes out and says, you know, thank you, Mr. President, for clearing up what happened down in Charlottesville. So, you know, he can't. He's a pretty dumb motherfucker, but he can't be that dumb. I think Donald Trump knows what he's doing. I think he's being careful not to offend the same racist America that voted him in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So they're all part of it. Like I said, this is almost like sports. This is a team. They are part of the same team, bro. And so when he's in office, man, you're going to get people who are more bold and more brash with racism. It's no longer going to be covert. It's no longer going to be low-key, which I actually would rather have. You got to ask yourself, you want somebody who's going to stab you in the back or punch you in the face? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So,
definitely, yeah.
So you basically
I personally
feel though, with Donald Trump being in office, it kind of just pulled the wool over everybody. Like, it kind of just revealed, took off the blanket of racism pretty much.
Yeah.
Saying, all right, guys, here's the real racist that you guys have been looking for, have been hiding this whole time, and now we have legitimate faces. Just like you said earlier, they all have jobs and whatnot. Basically, I went through a Twitter. I don't know if anybody follows this guy, the Black Aziz Ansari. He basically, you know, he's going through and he's posting all of these pictures of like maybe about 20 to 30 of the people that were at that Charlottesville protest, naming names. This is what they do. This is the college that they go to. These are normal
I think I've
guys
seen
that end up being the races that are there, and then some of them are saying like that's not the. I'm not always like that. What I don't understand is if you are supporting somebody like Trump, and Trump is basically supporting you, why hide the fact now? Why not go ahead and show that racism? See how well it actually goes over for you. I mean, with Trump being in office, I found a lot of people that, like, at one point I thought to know, like, hey, you know what, I can go, you know, I'm eye to eye with this person. Me and this person got the same ideals. And then as soon as Trump gets elected, it's like, whoop, no, you never knew this person in the first place. This is what they really feel like.
No, that's a fact. That's a fact, bro. And that goes back to my point. I would rather that. I would much rather that. We could probably the things that matter about agreeing on are politics, you know, in your worldview. We can agree on. We could go to dinner. We could like the same chicken and shit. We could like the same, you know, alcoholic beverage. All that is good. We getting along. The next day we go play basketball. We getting along. We on the same team, and then we start talking about politics. And you tell me you're for Trump. Like, it's over now. But that's something that I need to know, because supporting Trump kind of like shows me your mindset and what you're capable of and what type of thought process you have. And so that's dangerous. So I'd rather know those things, man. So it's sad to say, but at the same time, I'm kind of happy that this dude is in office, because it's making people wake up, and it's starting people on their journey to waking up. Whether they wake up now or 10 years from now, it's at least kind of, you know, flicking on the switch in their brain and in their hearts, like, yo, this shit is still fucked up. You know what I mean?
Man,
so
definitely. I just got one more thing that I want to say, man, and it's not necessarily towards you, like a question towards you, but it's just like a general statement that I want to say. You know, like, I have a 1-year-old son, man. I'm a black male. My son is black. You know what I'm saying? This shit is scary as fuck, man. Like, where the world is heading. To bring up a kid where you have to, you know, especially a young male, to bring him up in this world where you have to explain to him, you know, look, son, the police come to you, you know, just do what they say, you know. Don't be disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? You got to have these conversations with your kids nowadays, all because, you know, you just never know. Just because you want to see your kids make it home safe. And I feel like, you know, kind of to use the sports analogy, when you're going into the NFL, man, these teams at the NFL Combine, they do background checks, man. They talk to your second, third grade teacher. They talk to your 5-year-old ex-girlfriend. And if they and if the police department or the justice system use that same system for these, you know, for these policemen, for these district attorneys, for these judges, I really feel like that shit would would influence the way our country will be headed. Because I'm like, that's something that I never understood, because I follow sports, and I'm like, God damn, they go through all of this to go to the NFL. You have to, you know, they talk to your mama, they talk to your third cousin from your daddy's side, and it's just like, damn. But for a police to become a policeman, actually patrolling the streets with a weapon, it's, you know, you just pass a couple tests, you do a fitness test, and you do a background check, and you do a couple classes, and it's like, boom, you get a badge, and here you go serve our community. You get sworn in and go serve our community.
The interesting thing, no, you're absolutely right. But the interesting thing is, it's easy to hide from an individual perspective. It's easy to hide your racism, right? So there's nothing within those tests. And I know a couple brothers that tried to be police officers but didn't pass for whatever reason. But there's nothing in those tests that helps someone identify a racist per se. You know what I'm saying? Unless you have somebody in your family, like unless one of these white dudes got somebody in their family that got convicted of a hate crime or something like that they can actually see on paper. Other than that, it ain't no way to do it. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I say, like, we gotta stop with this idea that the majority of white people are not racist, because the majority of them are. At some point, and what I mean by that is, at some point, if a white person is not willing to give up their white privilege, then you have to. What else do you call them? Like, what is the name for that person? They might not come out and call you a nigger. They might not hit you over the head. They might not scream white power and all that shit, but they're still unrelenting of their white privilege. So they're still on the other side of things. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like a lot of times, those type of individuals are the ones that sneak into the system, or those type of individuals the ones that end up being police officers, judges, lawyers, and shit like that. So they still have some type of bias, hatred towards their own, hatred and bias towards their own people when they get in those positions. You know what I mean? And they come. What they do is they come and police the urban neighborhoods, and they never interacted with black people before. Probably lived in an all-white city and went to an all-white high school, and then they graduate high school and become police officers, and they get thrown into the ghettos of America. They can't even understand the culture. You know what I'm saying? They can't even. How they gonna come police black people that they've never ever spoken to before? The only idea they have of a black person is what they've seen on TV, rap videos and shit like that, right? And then they come into the community and try to police some gangbangers and stuff like that who are just misguided young individuals that don't have no other way. You know, and could probably use a good cop or two that came around and treated them like human beings and had a good conversation with them. You know what I'm saying? So. Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying, though, man. They get into the system, and there should be some type of evaluation. There should be more of a mental evaluation, I believe. But I don't know if there's a way to find out if somebody's racist. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there's a way to do that through a test. You know what I mean? But it's crazy, man. I wish there was.
No, I mean, yeah, and that's definitely been an issue. Is that I personally just don't see cops that have been around neighborhood or know how to talk to us. I mean, very few have been those guys where I can say, you know what, I trust this guy. You know, if he comes around, I know nothing's going to happen. But more often than not, I don't get that feeling no more. I'm not comfortable around police or anything like that, and it's going to be like that for a while. So real quick, D-Dot, I got a caller on the line, actually one of our co-hosts, Queen Prophet. Yo, Queen, you on? Hey, yo, Queen, you good?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead. Do you think?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Just want to say thank you to everybody for this segment. Definitely thank you. Shout out to B-Dot. I just wanted to touch on something really quick to see and get his opinion on something, because everything that you guys are touching on is definitely great points on how we got here and exactly what's keeping us stuck in this kind of place of, like, we're talking about this racism and just oppression. But what I wanted to do is kind of like just bring up some things as far as, like, you know, we discussed a lot of the reasons why we're stuck here, but I always try to talk to people about solutions and things that we can do to move forward, especially, you know, in the battle rap community. I feel like there's so many people who speak on topics, whether it's in a battle or, you know, something like this, like B-Dot in a radio conversation, where we can really start stepping up and leaders in our society can start taking back the reins and really doing something. You know what I mean? Like, there's 3 points that I always touch up with people. The first one being political philosophy, where people of color have to take politics, like you guys are talking about, back in our hands and in our communities. We obviously know by now that the system is rigged. You know what I mean? I can't tell you, like you said, we can't decipher who's a racist, who's not a racist. But I feel like social media is definitely a tool that will allow us to take back our communities and really start putting our own philosophies in our community. Maybe even something as simple as going state by state, you know what I mean, and saying, hey, you know, B-Dot, where are you from? Okay, you from this place? You know what? We're going to appoint you a leader in your community. And every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, we're going to meet and we're going to discuss on my next topic, economic philosophy, where we have to start putting our hands back into the money. You know what I mean? We have to control our communities. We got to control our budgets. And we can't rely on these government officials anymore. And then the last thing that I always touch on with them is this social philosophy, where instead of people of color trying to force ourselves into these set-up systems that are obviously set for us to fail, you know, take it back into our hands and make ourselves likable among our own kind. You know what I'm trying to say? I study a lot of, you know, Malcolm X's movement. I study a lot of Brother Martin Luther King's movement, and it's like, unfortunately, all of these teachings have been erased from our history. You know, you're not going to go into public school and find out anything about Marcus Garvey, you know, and I listen to Mason the General a lot. You know, he just came home from a bid. A lot of his friends came home from bids, and you see the difference between people in our community who have to go into, you know, the system and have to go into these jail systems. And by the time they come home 10, 20 years later, it's a little bit harder for them because they're maybe a little bit older or, you know, just out of touch with the younger generation. So I was just wondering, what do you guys think about, you know, maybe using social media as a way to say, you know what, we're going to have, like, the same way the government can look at the United States and divide us up into 50 states, 50 representatives, whatever it is. I feel like that's something that we need to think about as a community of people of color and say, you know what, we're going to make our own system and we're going to use social media to keep in touch.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly, absolutely agree, and I hope that part of that still has to be, on some level, I get what you're saying in terms of just completely excluding any outside source, but being a citizen of the United States of America, you still have to deal with the government or the state or the city that you live in on some level. You know what I'm saying? So what we have to do, kind of like what I was alluding to earlier, is we have to infiltrate the system to where we're in positions of power for our said communities. We have to vote municipally. You know what I'm saying? We have to get people, let's say, like to your example, let's say I'm B-Dot and I live in Los Angeles County, so I'm going to run for mayor of Los Angeles County, and we're going to collectively put a campaign together to get me elected and to get me in position to make changes for Los Angeles County and do that city by city, and especially in whatever we want to call minority cities or predominantly minority cities. That's definitely has to be a game plan to be implemented, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. It has to start from the ground up. We have to focus on our communities, get people in places of power, and do, like I keep saying, I tell people all the time, this has been done before. The Jewish people did it. The Chinese do it. Like I ride through L.A. and there's a city out here. I'm sure wherever you guys stay, there's similar cities. There's a city out here actually called Chinatown. There's a city out here actually called Koreatown. And when you go through these cities, all the businesses are owned by Chinese people. And all you see is Chinese people. They created their own community, and that's why they don't ever be tripping about no police brutality or no nothing. They got their own system running for their own people. So that goes back to the question I got asked earlier in terms of solution, and I said, this is one way to do it, or collectively as an American society, white people, the quote-unquote good white people, stand up and they help us make these changes, which I said earlier I don't believe that they're doing. So, yeah, I agree with you, Queen. Like, we have to do this from a ground level, city by city, community by community. I feel like that's the only way.
That honestly seems like it's going to end up being the only way. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of us have probably been trying to do for years, and, a lot of oppression going towards the way of anybody of people of color, any minority, anybody that's not white. Now you keep bringing up the term the good white people. The hard part about this is that the good white people almost feel like, I think, and this is just me kind of guessing, right, where I feel like that they have gotten to the point where, what can we do? Because the white people that are the bad white people, I guess we could say, the real racists out there, the ones that are out there protesting, they are almost outnumbering the good white people as well. I feel like they almost feel like they're smaller at this point. Like, what can we do? If you guys have been trying to fight this for hundreds and hundreds of years, like, what can we do when we get shut down just because, A, we associate with you, or B, we want to go ahead and make sure that you guys are the same exact right? How do you feel when you go ahead and see, like, good whites and good people, just non-people of color, actually try to push this, but they don't end up, they end up getting shut down just like everybody else?
Well, the only reason why they are outnumbered, because actually they wouldn't be outnumbered if they actually just did it. You know what I'm saying? So the only reason why they're outnumbered is because they're just not doing it. Can you imagine? Because I hate to really believe that in this world, there is, like, when I say good white people, I mean those are the ones that are on the fence. So I really hate to believe that out of the whole race of the European that came over to this land and populated the land here, right, I really hate to believe that really 70% of them, 70 to 80% of them are the evil ones, and they only have a 20%, a good part of their race. I would really hate to believe that, and I don't believe that. And I believe that you got, like I said, you got ones on the fence that don't want to give up their white privilege. But when they decide to, or when they really get the balls to do it, we as quote unquote minorities, with the help of them, we would outnumber the whatever you want to call the other side, the system, if you will. We would outnumber the system easily. Like, it wouldn't even be. It would be a joke. It would be a joke. It's like I be seeing those memes. I'll be seeing some of the memes where it has like it shows like one shark and then like a whole school of fish, but all the fish is like scared of the shark. But it says, well, what if all the fish decided to jump on the shark? You know what I mean? Like one of those type of shits. Like it would be a situation like that, and I think it's very, very possible. However, like I keep saying, I don't think that they're willing to relinquish their white privilege, and I don't think that they're willing to really stand with us and really because they don't know what that's like. You know, they don't come from poverty. They don't know. Majority of them don't come from where we come from, and they don't know what it's like to be disenfranchised. They don't know what it's like to not get a job because your name is Jaquan. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't go through these things, so they're terrified of having to potentially go through that. So they keep their mouth hushed and they live their great little lives and they have good jobs and the kids go to college and they just do what they do. You know what I'm saying? So I hate to say it, but the reality is I don't think that will happen. So it goes back to what the sister was saying about us doing it collectively as a community. You know what I mean? And that, I think that's probably our best bet.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
I think more that I understand what you were saying about, you know, they don't want to relinquish their power, but I think more that is they don't want to relinquish the gift of being white from their ancestors and their moms and their dads, because when you look at it, a lot of these, you know what I'm saying, like white kids that go to school, you know, and go to school with black kids, a lot of them are friends. But if they go home and you know, and Hannah tells her dad, hey, I want to go on a date with Jaquan or whatever, she's gonna say no, no. And if you do, then I'll sue you. I won't do nothing else for you.
And that's a racist.
Out there like this. Exactly.
And that's a racist.
And that's what I'm saying. They don't want to relinquish the gift of, you know, the gift of money, the gift of, you know what I'm saying, the gift of just being, you know, in a successful, like the spoon-fed, you know what I'm saying, position. Because I mean, like a lot of white people, or I've come across a lot of white people that are really, really nice people, genuinely nice people on the surface. But when you dig a little deeper, it's like, oh my, like what? Like, you know, like, I mean, are you really like that? But you just gotta, you know, like, and it's for a lot of people, for especially the minorities, you just have to watch, because they always, I mean, not always, but you know, a lot of Caucasian people feel that they have the, you know what I'm saying, they feel like they're in a superior position, even if they live in a trailer. You know what I'm saying? You can live in a 5-bedroom house and they live in a trailer home and they still feel like they're in a superior position just because of their skin color.
Yeah, facts. Absolutely, bro. And I mean, like I said, this is a generational hatred that's been passed down. So irregardless of financial position, they're gonna have that viewpoint. They're gonna have that viewpoint. You know what I mean? So it all goes back to what do we do? You know. So what is the solution to that? Like, you know, when I'm Pan-African and I talk about African history and I'm proud to be quote unquote black, but that doesn't make me hate anybody else because their skin lacks melanin. You know what I mean? Like, I don't walk down the street and hate a white person because their skin lacks melanin. So it's about how we react to their hatred and what do we do for our people to overthrow what they've been doing to us. You know, and it doesn't necessarily have to be done through violence and all that shit. I'm all about being intellectual. I'm all about outsmarting the opponent. So I'm like, man, this shit you got to hit them where it hurts, and that's in the pockets. You got to practice group economics within your people. Don't spend money with them. Go out of your way. I tell people, go out of your way to support black business. I don't care if you got to drive. If there's a black-owned grocery store, but it's 20 miles away, and there's a Ralph's that's 2 miles away, you better drive 20 miles away because it's really worth it for your people. You got to put in that kind of effort. You know what I mean? You got to really be about your community and wherever you stay. Even if you live in a mixed community, because I live in Los Angeles County, and we're a multicultural place, but I'm still going to go down to the deep parts of LA, like Leimert Park, like that's predominantly black, and that expresses that African spirituality, that expresses that African culture. I go down there, majority of people got on dashikis or some type of African garb, and they out there, you know, burning sages.